I was barely 7 when they came for me. Strangers in polished shoes, sunglasses, and stiff faces. I didn't understand then. I thought they were angels. They said my parents were gone. That word, gone, held no meaning until I was yanked from the only mud house I knew and driven far from the village, away from my grandmother's tears and my little brother's cries. The city was loud. The air smelled strange. Their home was cold, not because it lacked heat. Towel onto my wet floor. You'll start hawking pure water. No more free food in this house. I blinked, thinking I'd misheard her. Ma Hawk? I asked softly, my voice barely above a whisper. She turned sharply. Are you deaf? Yes. Hawk. You'll carry a cooler on your head and sell water like other useless girls on the street. You think feeding you is cheap. I wanted to speak, but my throat locked. This was a woman whose fridge was always full, whose children carried iPhones to school. They traveled on holidays, dressed in the finest clothes, and had tutors at home. Meanwhile, I never stepped foot in a classroom. My days were filled with chores, abuse, and silence. I looked out the window. Stephanie's school bus had just pulled away. I wasn't jealous, I was numb. Somewhere inside, I'd stopped expecting kindness. But this felt like another chain being fastened around my neck. Pure water, pure water. I called, trying to sound confident. But my voice cracked. No one noticed the trembling girl behind the load. I walked under the scorching sun for hours. Some people pitied me and bought 1 or 2. Most ignored me. But just when I thought I had something to return home with, it happened. 3 boys, street tough and wild-eyed, surrounded me near a narrow alley. Give us the money, one said, grinning. I clutched it to my chest, begging them. Please, it's my first day. They didn't care. One slapped the notes from my hand. Another pushed me down. And just like that, they were gone. When I limped home, lips cracked, legs trembling, I told Madame Eniola everything. The robbery, the fear, the tears. She didn't blink. She didn't ask if I was hurt. Instead, she grabbed a belt and screamed, Liar! Thief! So this is how you repay me? You think I'm stupid? The belt cracked through the air, and I stopped explaining. I don't remember how many times the belt struck me. I only remember the sound, whip, 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 and Stephanie laughing faintly from upstairs. The sharp sting on my back didn't hurt as much as the betrayal did. I wasn't just beaten. I was not believed. That crushed something in me. Afterward, Madame Eniola stood over me, panting. "Go inside and wash your blood off my floor," she spat. I crawled, not walked, to the bathroom. Every part of me throbbed. I turned slowly, expecting mockery. Instead, I saw a young man in crisp white linen, sunglasses resting on his head, watching me like I was human. "How much is everything?" he asked. "All of it." I blinked. He nodded, smiling softly. "Yes, all. I'll take it." He paid, without haggling. My mouth fell open at the crisp notes he handed me. It was more than I made in days. Thank you, sir," I stammered. That evening, I came home with a full purse for the first time. Madame Eniola snatched the money, counted it thrice, and grumbled, "Better. Maybe you're not completely useless after all." But the next day it happened again. As I stepped out to hawk, the same car pulled up. The same man. "Let me buy them all again," he said warmly. After he paid, he added, "Don't go home immediately. Rest a little. I know what happens when you go back too fast." He was right. Somehow he knew. And it continued. Day after day, he found me. Bought everything. Spoke gently. Left with a smile. I never asked why. I just felt safe. Then one fateful day, he said the words that stopped my heart. "Can I see you again? Not just to buy water. I mean see you." I nodded shyly, then rushed home to tell Madame Eniola. She laughed like thunder. "You? A man wants you? Bring the idiot here. Maybe he'll take you out of my house, you ungrateful village girl." I didn't answer. But in my heart, I held on to his smile. The next morning, the compound trembled. 3 black SUVs pulled up at our gate, each guarded by men in dark suits with earpieces. Madame Eniola ran to the window, her eyes widening in shock. Who are these people?" she gasped. I stood still, heart thumping. "It's him," I whispered. She spun around, her face morphing into panic and calculation. "Go and hide," she ordered. Then she stormed upstairs, yelling, "Stephanie, dress up. Now!" Minutes later, Stephanie glided down in a gown glittering with gold beads. Her mother had wrapped her in perfume and pride. I stood near the kitchen, watching through the curtain as he stepped into the house, calm and respectful. "Good afternoon, Ma," he said, bowing slightly. "I'm here for something important." Madame Eniola smiled. "Of course. Sit, please. My daughter just came down." He looked confused. "Your daughter?" After the wedding, Stephanie moved into his mansion. They hired a nanny within a week. She got pregnant not long after. The entire family danced like they'd won a prize. Meanwhile, I remained barefoot unnoticed, still hawking pure water on the hot city streets. Then one afternoon, after selling in the scorching sun, I returned home to find a stranger in our parlor. His hair was rough, his shirt torn, and he smelled like stale smoke and sweat. My heart sank before I even heard her voice. Madame Eniola leaned in and whispered with a cruel smirk, "That's your husband. Wedding is next week. You're not allowed to say a word." My legs weakened. "Ma, please," I whispered. "Not a word," she snapped. "If you speak, you'll regret it." That night, I lay on my mat and wept until my chest ached. No one heard me. No one cared. I was being tossed like trash to a man I didn't know, because they had no use for me anymore. The wedding came like a shadow. No music. No cake. No guests, just a dusty courtyard, a plastic chair, and tears I swallowed for dignity. When we left for his home, I said nothing. One single room awaited us, its walls stained with years of poverty. No love. No joy. Just silence and fate, closing in like a storm. The room was smaller than Madame Eniola's bathroom. A rusted ceiling fan hung limp overhead, stirring nothing but heat and stillness. The walls were cracked, the mattress on the floor smelled of old sweat, and a single naked bulb flickered like it, too, was tired of this life. He didn't say much. His name was Cunnel. He sat in the corner, drinking cheap sachet gin, his eyes half lost in thoughts I didn't want to understand. "Sleep," he muttered, pointing to the mattress. I sat at the edge, arms wrapped around myself. Tears slid silently. Nothing special. Just a faded yellow gown that used to belong to Madame Eniola's cleaner. I washed it that night and hung it to dry. The next morning, I wore it and wrapped a scarf neatly around my hair. Cunnel came out in a clean shirt I hadn't seen before. He didn't say much, just smiled faintly. We boarded a cab, and I expected a street market or maybe a roadside canteen. But when we got out, I froze. It was a restaurant. But not just any restaurant. An expensive, glass-walled place where even the chairs looked like gold. My heart dropped. I pulled his sleeve. "Cunnel, please," I begged, falling to my knees. "We don't have money for this. Let's go home. Let me cook something for us." He looked down at me, his eyes unreadable. "Stand up," he whispered. "Trust me." Before I could move, a sleek, black luxury car rolled to a stop in front of the restaurant. Everyone turned to look, wondering who the owner could be. A few seconds later, 2 men in suits walked toward us. They stopped in front of Cunnel. "Sir," one said respectfully, "this is your car." "Congratulations." He handed him the keys. My mouth hung open. Cunnel stood silently. Even he looked stunned. I stared between the car and him, my heart thudding. "Cunnel, who are you?" My legs trembled as I stared at the car keys in Cunnel's hand. I didn't understand what was happening. None of it made sense. But then he turned to me, eyes soft, voice steady. "Amara, this car is yours." I blinked. "What?" He smiled, then stepped back and gestured around us. "This restaurant? It's mine too. I own it." Gasps rippled through the people nearby. My eyes welled with tears. Cunnel continued. "I planned everything. I was tired of women who only chase money and comfort. They never want to suffer with a man. They want luxury but no loyalty. So I tested you. I dropped to my knees, overcome by emotion. Thank you. Thank you, Colonel, I whispered, clutching the key like it was life itself. People clapped. Waiters smiled. Even strangers stood up and applauded. For the first time in my life, people were clapping for me. Then Colonel raised a hand, silencing the crowd. One more thing, he said, his voice deeper now. That house Stephanie and her husband are living in? It belongs to me. My heart stopped. Yes. I knew Madame Eniola would try to force me to marry her daughter if I came as myself. So I sent my driver in my place. He's the one they married Stephanie off to. And now, he chuckled, as we speak, they're packing out of my mansion. Gasps again. They'll be moving into the place where my driver really lives. A single room with broken windows and mosquitoes. I covered my mouth, stunned. He stepped closer, pulled me gently up, and whispered, "You are the real queen." And for the first time ever, I believed it. Screams echoed from the compound that once rejected me. Madame Eniola clutched her wrapper, dragging it as she ran after the moving truck. "You can't do this. You can't throw us out." But the guards didn't flinch. "Instructions from the owner," one said coldly. Stephanie stood frozen in the middle of the yard, barefoot, her designer dress crumpled. "Where's my husband? Where's Colonel?" Her husband, Colonel's driver, emerged, a smirk on his face as he tossed their clothes into the truck. "Sorry, sweetheart," he said. "My job's done. You married me, not the real boss. You enjoyed the ride. Now it's time to get off." Madame Eniola turned, eyes bloodshot. Amara, please talk to him. Tell him we were only joking." But I didn't speak. I stood beside Colonel, in a car she never imagined I could own, dressed in a gown she would never have given me. I looked at her, but there was no hate in my heart, just silence. Later that night, Colonel drove me back to our real home, my new home. A quiet, gated mansion with flower beds and gentle light. I walked through the doors in disbelief. "This is yours now," Colonel whispered. "Your story starts today." In my room, I sat by the window and watched the stars. The same stars I used to cry to, begging them to help me escape. I smiled. The girl who was once invisible, beaten, mocked, and thrown away, had been seen by fate, loved by it, carried into light. And as I laid my head down that night, I wasn't a slave. I wasn't a burden. I was a wife, a queen, and finally, free. 2 years later, I stood before a crowd in my old village. Children sat cross-legged under the mango tree. Mothers whispered, staring at me in wonder. They couldn't believe it. Amara, the girl who once left barefoot and broken, now stood tall, dressed in grace and strength. I'd returned, not for revenge, but to rebuild. Colonel and I had started a foundation, Hope from Ashes. We built a free school, opened a health center, and started skill workshops for orphan girls. I knew their pain. I carried their scars. That's why I came back for them. That same evening, I walked to the mud house where I was born. It had collapsed over time, weeds growing where laughter used to live. I knelt in the dust and whispered, "Mama, I made it. Your daughter made it." Tears streamed down my face, not of sorrow, but peace. As the sun set, I returned to the city. Stephanie? She now worked in a small tailoring shop, quiet and humbled. Madame Eniola lived in a shared apartment, her pride stripped bare. We never exchanged words again, but I forgave them. Not because they deserved it, but because I did. In my mansion, I heard Colonel's voice calling, "Amara." I turned, smiling. "Yes, my king?" He pulled me into a warm embrace. "Thank you for waiting. Thank you for believing." And as I looked around at the life I never dreamed I'd have, I whispered back, "Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." Because in the end, this wasn't just my story. It was a reminder. Sometimes fate doesn't forget you. It just takes the long way home. Moral lesson. Never look down on anyone because of their current situation. Life has a way of turning tables. Amara's story teaches us that pain, rejection, and betrayal do not define a person's worth or future. True beauty lies in patience, humility, and a pure heart. Those who endure silently are often being prepared for something greater. And sometimes the person the world calls worthless is the one fate has crowned for greatness. It also reminds us that kindness, loyalty, and humility are more valuable than wealth, and in the end, it's not where you come from, but who you become that truly matters. If you enjoy this story, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button, white heavy checkmark, turn on the PST notification, and like this video. Thanks for watching.